Here we go. Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer. Right over there is John, our resident millennial. John, how are you doing this evening?
Pretty all right. Fairly neato.
Wow, that's just
Very
sad.
okay.
That's just a sad output from you. Sad output. Sad output. And then down below, we've
Yeah.
got a special guest tonight from Liberty Lockdown Podcast. We have Clint. How are you doing this evening, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, Robert and John. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a great day to talk.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Is it a great day to talk?
Hey, I think a lot of people gave up on talking today, so we can
Right.
carry on the tradition.
Right. I mean, I've heard some rumors that something happened. I don't know. What was it? Washington State, John? Something up in Washington
Yeah,
State?
the
Some sort of.
the generic Washington football team. Apparently they lost today and everyone got mad. I don't know. It was something like that.
Oh, was it
Yeah.
the Washington State Capitals? Because I know I heard
I think
capital
so.
involved in all. No, no, no. Definitely DC. DC shit going on there today made things a little bit crazy. I
Yeah.
actually didn't get much of anything done today because I was like constantly just kind of going in for an update here, an update there, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just like okay, what what's gonna go on? But we'll talk about that in a minute. Real quick, I want to thank folks for showing up tonight. I see that we've got Elephant Man in the house. I see some Jay Edgar and some Nephilim Ninja in there. Good to see you guys tonight.
So guys.
So before we go any further, anytime we have a new guest, I want to take a couple of minutes and let you, Clint, go through your. I'm sure you've got a prepared regurgitation of who you are and an about you section that you can give to us and introduce yourself to us, to the audience. Let us know a little bit
Yeah,
about what's going on with you.
I'll give you an elevator speech. My name's Clint. Podcast is Liberty Lockdown. LibertyLockPod on Twitter and Parler and wherever else. But private money mortgage broker, entrepreneur, started my own company like 7, 8 years ago. I'm essentially retired now, so I've been very successful, and I'm second generation libertarian. So I am very committed to the cause and trying to grow my audience in that realm. So that's the long and short of it.
Another goddamn libertarian. John, what are you
I know.
trying to do here?
Dude, they're multiplying. I don't know what you want me to do.
I'm sorry, brother.
He's John's been. I have to say, John's been on a quest ever since we started this podcast. John's kind of been on a quest to turn me, to draw me into the
Yeah.
fold, as it were. And he's been somewhat successful. I won't. I will say that my views have changed somewhat, but I can't drink the Kool-Aid. I
Well, but tell me what the biggest sticking point is. I'll see if I can help.
well, the a it's far too diverse or divisive of a spectrum when it comes to libertarians. The ideology is so widespread from one person to another that the message doesn't ever come across as coherent to me
Sure.
necessarily. But I don't see libertarianism as scalable as it's imparted to be, is when we're dealing with a country the size that we are and growing. And then I also just kind of feel like libertarians are more of a middle of the road pacifist, almost like not pacifist, but just apathetic. Okay, well, we don't want to get involved, right?
Yeah. Well,
And that bothers me.
I agree with every complaint you just had about libertarianism, for the record. But I would say that there is a vein of libertarianism that is extraordinarily um, potent and pure and passionate and ready to fight. So I would caution you against using the Justin Amashes of the world and things of that nature to view all of us. There is a much more kind of patriotic aspect to it, not so much a nationalist, but one that appreciates the founding principles of this country and the Western Enlightenment values. So, but I agree with you. I mean, the messaging is terrible. The LP messaging is dog shit. I'm a huge, fan of the ANCAP Rothbardian wing.
Mhm.
So I think that would probably be more appealing to you. So I would recommend you look into him a little bit. Murray Rothbard definitely sounds more up your alley than some of the more milk toast guys that are out there.
Right, and that's the the problem that I see over the last few years, especially with the Trump era, is that I'm starting to feel like libertarianism is becoming chic, right? Like it's the
Mm.
in thing to do. So a lot of people are jumping on board with the libertarian idea, right? Oh, libertarianism sounds great, but they have no idea how to
See,
move forward with it, like to follow it, to understand it. It's like Lee press on nails. It's
Yeah.
just, you know
I
and
think that's a product of cultural sickness. Like we aren't prepared culturally for a libertarian society. So I agree.
right.
At present, forcing this indoctrinated population into a purely libertarian society would probably create some really cataclysmic effects. I'm personally of the ANCAP community, where I would like to see like-minded people flee to a particular plot of land somewhere in America and kind of declare our independence. That's an extremely radical take, but one that I actually do support strongly. And I think that the events of today have demonstrated pretty definitively that there is no peacefully reassembling this nation. There is a division that is insurmountable in my view. I take it by your description that you're conservative leaning.
I have become more conservative as I've gotten older, as I think many people do.
Sure, sure. Well, and I'm not an anti Trump guy, Trump derangement syndrome libertarian. There are many of those as well. So we'll get along on that front. But yeah, I mean I agree. In the current structure, I don't think that the United States is prepared for a true libertarian society. But I wouldn't give up on the ideology as a whole simply because it doesn't apply to this modern
Right.
cesspit.
Well, now don't get me wrong. From the mindset, like you said, my wife and I, we have a plan that, hopefully within just a handful of years, we piece the hell out of this urban environment we're in, and we're going to go get ourselves a little plot of land up in Tennessee, up in the mountains, where we're far enough that people just won't give a shit about us.
I
We
love it.
that we so just basically under the radar. I won't
You're
give
you're
up my
sounding
internet, but
you're sounding like an anarchist already. I like it.
but I don't. But I don't. It's I will do it with the understanding that there's always going to be an authority figure, no matter what is in place. Somebody's going to be an authority over me from the standpoint of how I conduct my life, on the public scale. There's
Yeah.
always going to
right.
be that, and that's the part where I don't agree with anarchy. I'm tentative about
Well, hang
minarchy.
on, real quick. How can just because you have anarchy does not mean
Oh,
that there's no above you.
No,
It doesn't mean that there's it just means that there's no rulers, which is a different thing than
right,
you choosing to follow someone, or
yeah. You would still have
follow a
leadership.
god or whatever it is. You can still have a leadership without having a
right.
ruler.
Well, and that's and
Yeah.
that's why I don't buy into. That's why I don't like really like the anarchist idea. Is that ultimately you're still going to have a leader. You're still going to have someone in charge, and what we know to be true is that the moment that somebody's in charge, when they have some amount of power, they will corrupt that power, and it will become
Also,
more corrupt as they gain more power.
Yeah.
we could
Well,
give it.
that's.
Oh,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. You're the guest. You go ahead.
I mean, I tend to agree with you. There is a natural power vacuum that occurs in society. However, the anarchist answer to that is that everyone's armed to the teeth, and there's a necessity for mutual respect. So, you obviously there would also be private security and things like that would compete against each other. I could go on and on all night as to the practical answers I have to these issues, but I don't disagree with your assessment that there is an issue of a consistent need amongst people for rulers. That many
Right.
people, particularly if you look at America, in modern America, I'd say more than half of the country desperately not only wants but perhaps needs a ruler. I am not one of those people, and I would like to have my own plot of land so I could live that lifestyle. And that's all I ask. It's not that I don't want violent civil war, but peaceful secession sounds extraordinarily appealing to me at this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful idea. I
Mhm.
just, and that's where that scalability comes in. It's just, I don't. There's just too many people, and to
Yeah,
be, I mean, literally, I've told John. I said the only way that something like that could happen for libertarianism to thrive is we literally have to break the country into 50 country states.
sounds great to me.
It can no longer have a federal government over it
Yeah.
at all, and we
I
would know, but
agree.
we would no longer be America, and that reaches down to me at the core level, and I'm like, God damn it, I love my country. I don't want to see it fall apart that way. That
Right.
hurts me.
But
Yeah.
you are watching it fall apart now, are you
Yes,
not?
I agree. I understand that.
Okay.
That
Well,
that stabs at the heart of the patriot in me, you know.
and it does me as well. Just so you know, I mean, I was born, in San Diego, California. I am a huge fan of this country, and I was a huge fan of the state of California. But much as my existence in California has become untenable, I think that the union itself has as well. And that's all I'm saying. It's not that I do it with glee. I do it out of necessity.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
and that's
And I
why.
think
Oh, go
I
ahead.
also think another decent solution, other than seceding into 50 separate states or 50 separate countries, is just having an opt out option. Is saying I opt out of everything. Maybe you have to go to a certain area where they have that. I don't know. I don't know
Uh,
exactly what it would look like,
yeah,
but that
like
would be
an
another
autonomous
way to.
zone.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. An autonomous them.
but one that is actually filled
Functional.
with filled with people that are equipped to actually do something once
Right.
they arrive, not kids that are trying to plant produce on
Oh
concrete.
my God. That was amazing.
What, you can't grow plants on concrete?
It's not easy. It's not easy.
My
I mean,
wife
they just
my wife would beg to differ. She's like,
Well,
Give me
she's
some
also an
dirt."
anomaly.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but they were throwing just like black plastic tarps down with soil on top of it and then planting stuff. And I was like, you guys think you're going to be there for a couple months to actually get any production here? Like, you're going to get shut down. I guess that's yeah. I agree with your assessment of the leftist anarchist strain, largely because they do desperately want a leader, regardless
mhm.
of the fact that they are labeled anarchists. The right anarchist strain is much more independent and self motivated, and I think that they would have a far greater chance of success, which is why I categorize myself as a right leaning or an ANCAP type person. So
Yeah.
Maybe what you just is something in what you just said is really the core problem here, and it's always something that I, currently have had as a real problem is the divisiveness. So when we talk about any party, we can talk about any party, for instance, we can talk about an individual party, and we can talk about right-leaning Republicans and left-leaning Republicans, and then
sure.
we look at a system, we look at democracy, we've got a split, it's split right down the middle, between Democrats and Republicans. We've got libertarianism, you've got right-leaning, you've got left-leaning. Everything has got two sides to it, and I'm like, two sides to this doesn't help. Like, it's, the two party system is a failure for this country at this point. It's become
I
that,
agree.
right?
Yeah,
and
no,
uh
totally.
and you wouldn't escape that with libertarianism. You're gonna have your
Right. But
Democrats and
we
Republicans in a libertarian
well, we
system
would
as
have a we
well.
would have a
Right.
free society that allowed for people who believed in statism to go to whatever state was operating in that function. I mean, that's part of the immigration platform is that they're much more loose on that.
Right.
But simultaneously, you have to be pretty fiercely opposed to statists that want to live in your plot of land. So we believe in property rights, so that we
Mhm.
can actually forbid people from entering our commune or whatever you want to call it, our little anarchist plot of land, and that's mandatory. But to your point about the country being divided and that wouldn't go away, I think that's a compelling argument for anarchism in that we need to find a balance in which we allow people with different ideologies to coexist amongst each other without ruling each other. And that is the biggest issue that I'm witnessing in modern American society, is that we have two kind of cult-like factions that are not content with having their little aspect of what they want, they want it all. Like the Democrats want the House, the Senate, the presidency. They want it all, and the Republicans feel the same way. And I think that when the Republicans lost it last night, which potentially they did. We're not. I don't know that they're all called elections, but you saw the uproar today. I mean, that added to the fuel of these protests this morning.
Right.
And I think that's just evidence that there is a division in this country that is so profound and so deep that I don't think you can unify it. So that I'm not saying that anarchism is the only answer, but the status quo is certainly not.
Right. And it does make, and that makes me deeply sad. When we've got, I mean, you can go all the way down to the community level, and you'll see Republicans who don't even want Democrats living on their street, don't want you living in the same neighborhood with me. I mean, the vitriol that goes on between the two parties on the citizen level is just insane at this point, right? And it's a scramble to find something that can solve that unity issue. I mean, the last time we had something that did anything close to it was 9/11, and that was a pretty sucky event.
No kidding. I would prefer not to have to take that path to unify us once again. I think that there is the potential for war this year as the government tries to find some galvanizing movement. I think that they'll be mistaken because the anti-war strain that Trump left within the MAGA folks is pretty potent. So I think that it'll be a mistake if they go that path. But I wouldn't put it past them to try to have some sort of, whether it's real or not, some sort of antagonism by a foreign foe. It looks like Iran is the latest target. I hope that we avoid that, but we'll see.
They're hoping. Yes. Somebody's hoping.
Sure seems like it.
Right. Well, I don't know, John. How much did you follow what was going on today?
Shitload of it. I actually I watched most of Steven's stream.
Okay.
On it. The unfortunate thing is I missed. I'm not going to say it actually because it could implicate him, so I'm not going to say anything. But I just missed the important part of the whole thing during his stream.
Right. Real quick, Elephant Man posted some questions real quick that I wanted to touch on real quick before we talk about DC more. He says, how did we get so divided? Who divided us, and who is making it worse? Now, Clint,
you want to answer that?
No, I want you to. You go ahead and you throw some answers out there because I'll have an opinion too, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's this is going to, verge on the conspiratorial, but I really do think that there's been a concerted effort started under the USSR and preceded by the Chinese Communist Party to infiltrate our higher education with Marxist ideology. And as that has spread amongst the youth, they are now in positions of power where they are implementing it. I think that has been the biggest divisive act that we've had perpetrated against us. I think there's also a natural evolution when it comes to thought processes. And, you have a country that's been together for 250 years or whatever it's been. I think at some point it's just like any marriage. You grow apart. It's not necessarily anything evil about it. I personally do think there's something evil about it because I think that it is evil to want to control your neighbor. And that ideology has grown and metastasized in ways that I had never imagined as a child that it could, to the point that, you have basically Pol Pots running around that live, in my town, and they function as, kind of mini dictators. My city council had a vote last night to, really harshly crack down on the few small businesses that have refused to shut down. I mean, this is just not the country that I was born into. I think anyone looking around should be able to identify the major differences that have occurred, or the major, shift that has occurred. And that would be my explanation for it.
Now, see, I tend to think it goes, I think it was something that was always building, this divisiveness, but I think the manifestation of it came in the 1960s and 70s when very, very monumental things happened that caused a lot of people to look to the government as as a resource, somebody to rely on. When you talk about affirmative action, when you talk about women's rights, these kind of things, where the government started stepping in and saying, yes, we will do things, we will put things into place that protect you. And so then we had the Vietnam War going on. And these things started creating a divisiveness amongst the population where, I mean, how many white people were sitting around going, wait a minute, you're about to hand jobs to minorities, you're about to hand money to minorities in perpetuity,
Mm-hmm.
and then it carries on and goes on through the years as the government itself, each side, tried desperately to gain more power and more influence and had to keep one upping. And like you said, loading the Senate, loading the House,
Right.
loading the Supreme Court. These became the things that mattered. And as they fought to get that power, the people sat and watched and said, okay, I have to choose a side in this.
Mhm.
So many things demanded that we choose a side. And we
Yeah.
became more and more divisive over the decades as we move forward. And no one has attempted to stop that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no political will for unity because it is popular to appeal to those that are already passionately opposed to their enemy, and the enemy is their fellow American to a large extent. But I would actually, I would extrapolate it back quite a bit further, before 1960. I would
Sure.
say 1913, with the implementation of the Federal Reserve and central banking, laid the groundwork for basic like income inequality and a lack of feeling as if you're in control of your own future. 1930s progressivism movement with the New Deal under FDR, extremely grew upon that, where we had Social Security and other welfare programs. In the 1970s with Nixon, and then you have the war on drugs, which adds to
God.
Yeah. So each layer of it, just like I said, it metastasizes, and I think that a lot of it is fundamentally part of Marxist ideology, but it's also just part of a country being taken over by kind of a technocratic elite. So I don't know, man. It's complicated.
Right.
It's a very complicated.
And that elite is on both sides. And that's
Yes.
the thing. That's the mistake I think so many people out there make, because we soundbite our information now. Everything is headlines, and there's not as much reading, in depth thinking, looking into these things, and so people sit around and they're just what what the hell, this is the way it's supposed to be, this is the way it's going to happen, and this shit just rolls over on them constantly. And I mean, how do you pull your head out of your ass enough to see it and see that it's rhetoric on both sides, and that nobody that you're listening to that puts out a tweet or a soundbite is trustworthy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the hard part, is that you have to have a
Except for
sense.
us.
What's that?
Trustworthy. Except for us, we're trustworthy.
Right.
Believe us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
meant
that's
government.
Yeah. No, I think that's the issue, is that it's very hard to identify for a lot of people who is a truth teller. I think that it comes through whether the media wants it to or not. Oftentimes, you get it with fringe elements like Joe Rogan or Alex Smith or Alex Jones, that get these kind of cult followings that grow into a point where maybe Rogan isn't as authentic as he once was. But I think that's the reason for his extraordinary success, is that in a world filled with media lies, whether he was right or wrong, he was telling you his true opinion, and that was a really important thing for people, especially young men of my age group. It was vitally important. We were seeking truth, even if it was wrong. We just wanted you to tell us how you actually felt, and he did that. And I that's what I've tried to carry forward with my show, is to whether I'm right or wrong, I'm gonna all day, every day, I'm going to tell you what I think and what I feel in my heart and my soul. There's no bullshit. I'm not ever trying to like grow my show. It's not about getting sound bites or anything like that. It's just about telling the truth. And that's the problem. In my opinion, that's the reason that Trump was elected, is that he railed against the cathedral, the media apparatus, the lying CNNs of the world.
Right.
And that's evidence that while people may still be indoctrinated, they're not completely oblivious to the lies that they're being fed.
Sure, sure, and I agree with that. I just wish the lies weren't coming from from the politicians as well. I mean,
Well, I'm not sure that's a new thing, but
well,
yeah.
no,
Right,
and
it's
that's
certainly not new.
no that, and I come from an era. I was raised in a world where lawyers and politicians, you didn't trust them. You could never trust what they were going to say because their
Right.
whole job was geared around lying, and and so but people listen to what they say and obviously trusted enough to act. And that's the problem I have. Is just because a politician says something and you like the way it sounds, it speaks to something in you, that doesn't mean that they're A, genuine, or B, that it's worth a shit from an informational standpoint enough for you to go out there and do something stupid.
Well, you're sounding more like an anarchist every minute, man. I
Am
think you're right.
Maybe
I think you're
am.
right that there are no politicians that I trust other than Thomas Massey, and that's just because he was an outsider that was like actually one of my community prior to getting into power, and then I've witnessed his voting record, I've witnessed his speeches. He has stayed true to it, and he's a guy that lives in Kentucky rurally on a farm with his wife, and he's self-sustaining. He's just one of those guys. He's an anomaly. But then other than that, we should talk about storming the Capitol. I want to hear your.
Yeah,
Well, I
me
want
too.
to. Okay, so here's my first. Here's a question for you. So, what Trump said in his speech this morning, do you or do you not agree that with the idea that's being put out there that he was inciting this situation that happened at the Capitol today? Because he was out and he's given a speech, right?
Right. Here, John, you go first.
Yeah, I was going to say whether or not. Okay, first I'm going to start with I think he knew it was going to happen. Not necessarily they would storm the Capitol building, but I think that he knew there was going to be a lot of upheaval there, which is why he invited them in the first place, why he held the rally in the first place. But he did make sure to say very clearly during that speech that we're going to peaceably assemble over wherever it was they were going to assemble. So I don't think that's inciting violence. Firstly, he did kind of do a little CYA there. But I do think that he knew something was going to go down if Pence didn't do what he wanted him to do. I think that was pressure on Pence and everyone else, really.
Yeah, and I think it's evidenced by the fact that Pence was the one that called in the National Guard against the Trump supporters that were there, and Trump was not the one that did that. So I think there's a division. I think there's a division within the RNC that's.
Oh, of course.
Of course, but I think that it goes all the way to the top where Trump has been essentially extricated from power. He's been cordoned off and made into kind of a radioactive waste at this point. And I'm not some Trump hater, so I don't take any glee in that. Right. I'm just literally analyzing what I'm witnessing, and that's what I believe is occurring. I think that whether or not the election was stolen, I think that there's a high probability it was. I think that they have decided that Trump is out, and they will do whatever it takes to make sure that occurs. And I think that today was evidence of that, in that Pence turned against his orange Jesus,
Well, supposedly he had already turned against him yesterday and told him that they had looked into it and he was unable to turn over the election.
Yep.
And so when he told Trump that, Trump supposedly got pissed off about that already.
Yeah.
It's like,
that doesn't surprise me.
Pence is abandoning ship too. But this, you got to expect it. This has been happening over the weeks since the election. Almost every day, some other Republican has abandoned ship and they're not on board with Trump.
They're trying to save their careers. They have to continue. Right. Trump doesn't.
Exactly right. They're trying to create an environment where they become the new key holders for the RNC, and I think that they're making a catastrophic calculation error in that they believe that once Trump's gone, Trumpism is gone, and it just couldn't be further from the truth. Like the people that support Trump to a large extent don't give a fuck about the Republican Party, and I think that by separating yourself from him and truly abandoning him in his moment of need, whether it's justified or not, he is asking for help and they are rejecting him outright. I think that they will pay a political price for that for, years to come.
Mhm.
And I think that Pence has presidential aspirations in 2024. And I think that he's going to eat shit because of it, because there's no way in hell MAGA Nation supports that guy after what he did over the past 48 hours.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Cruz that's going to get a lot of support in 2024. I think he's been setting himself up for a presidential run.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of people scrambling to do that. I mean, it's sad to say, but I think Trump has created the 4-year election cycle now, where it used to it'd be like a year and a half, at best, and now it's just like, we're just always going to be wondering who's going to be president.
It's great. It's great for our business model, though.
It is. Great for us. Yeah.
So breaching the Capitol building. Now, when this, as this happened, Jesus Christ, the misinformation that was flying out of the media about it happening and the things that were going on in there were just stunning to me. Where they were just so off. Even the woman, unfortunately, there was a woman that was shot inside the Capitol building. The initial reports are that it's expected that it was a law enforcement individual who shot her, but I don't know that any of that story has been confirmed and come out, but apparently around 6 p.m. this evening, she died.
Mm-hmm.
But right when that happened, you were hearing conflicting reports. Oh, a woman was shot in the neck. Oh, she was shot in the stomach. There were shots fired, but nobody was hurt. And
this is where it helps if you're a Twitter junkie like me. I was watching the videos right as it, like, basically right after it happened. It was a young-ish woman who was trying to crawl through a window that was a door was barricaded off in the Capitol building. On the other side of it, all of the Congress people had huddled into rooms, and I think that it was basically the last line of defense for before the Congress people were actually under threat. And I think that's why they fired. She was the only one that tried to crawl through the broken window, and they shot her in the neck. And it turns out that she's actually a San Diego native. At first, the reports were that she was a 16-year-old girl. Turns out that she's like a 18-year-old Navy vet. But she's dead, and she was killed in the Capitol building. It's a tragic event, regardless of how you feel about it. The political ramifications of all this. I think it's very sad that we've gotten to this point. But I have to say that after 4 years of what they've done with the Trump presidency, I feel that this was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I told my wife yesterday. I said tomorrow's going to be a crazy day. I said something's going to happen in D.C. tomorrow. I don't know what, but something is going to pop off in D.C. tomorrow. It's just inevitable. Now. I will say that ask this is, after seeing a lot of the images that were coming out and some of the, I'll use the word shenanigans going on in there, graffiti and silly stuff and all. What this doesn't seem like it was any kind of coordinated situation or anything where they were like actually literally trying to accomplish anything, but just actually getting in there. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is that really all it turned out to be? Was just
yeah.
They got in there for a photo op essentially, and they took a bunch of pictures and I think they stole a few items.
Didn't I say Pelosi's podium being somebody hauling that around? And
well, more notable than that, even though that's hilarious, it was that they took. I think they may have taken some of the hard drives from the computers, because the Congress people were so caught off guard that they didn't even lock their computers. So there's photos of Pelosi's computer with her email up. So I think that people stole that data. And for that alone, I'm happy about what occurred today, because if we can get that dropped WikiLeaks style, I will be thrilled to see the inner workings of this beast, which would be like nothing we've probably ever seen before. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. See, and I wind up with mixed feelings about it.
That's reasonable,
because this is not the kind of thing that I want to see happening, because I know that there's for one of how broken it is, there's a system in place for handling this kind of shit, right? I
But
mean,
but is there? Is there
well,
anymore? Do you
well,
feel
like
like
I
there
said,
is?
it's still there, broken, like I said, but it's there, right? I mean, we
Well,
watched it as this evidence of fraud kept being brought to courts, and we saw how the system handled it. Now, I'm not saying it's a the system works. I'm just
mhm.
saying that it is in place. There are avenues, I don't know, but
I don't know
storming
either,
the
man.
Capitol building for
See,
a
that's the
photo
thing,
op,
though.
it seems kind of high school to me.
Well,
Not in
well,
my
think
opinion.
of well, okay, so yeah, obviously they weren't going in there with a plan, right? They weren't going in there to water the tree, as it were. They just made it in there, and we're like, oh shit, now what? Um, but when it comes to like the courts and stuff, like you were saying, you were saying they looked at it in court, but they didn't actually get to look at it. The cases were dismissed before they had their day in court.
I
So,
understand how it happened. That's what I
but you also
say.
have to look at these are the same people that the last 4 years were called, every racist Nazi. A lot of them probably got fired from their jobs or something they said on Twitter. They just pent up rage for the past
Or their
years.
business was shut down by the
Or their,
lockdown.
that was my next thing I was gonna say was, then the lockdowns happened after all of that, and then so you're already pissed off, and then you get locked down. Okay, 2 weeks, fine, whatever. Then it turns into what, 9 months, 10
10,
months?
10.
Yeah, 10 months now, and people's businesses have failed. The people in the government don't care. I mean, yeah, you're gonna be pissed off,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you
I
get a
think,
chance to break into the Capitol. I'm just saying, I get it.
yeah.
That's it. I
No,
get it.
I get the rage. And to be fair, I don't think that they went in there for the photo op. I think they went in there as a show of force. They wanted to demonstrate that they weren't going to be walked over anymore. Whether or not it's childish, sure, maybe it is. But if you have a system that is so broken that you have no faith in it, and if you're a believer in democracy, which I am not, but if you are, and you believe that the system has basically left you out to dry, I don't
Yeah.
see what choice you have. I mean, that honestly, I don't see what choice these people had if they believe that the election was stolen. You have an obligation. That is as American as it gets to say to yourself, I am being robbed blind by my government, and I can't vote to change it. I have no choice but action, and that's what they
Yeah.
took. So I have to support the spirit of it. I do not support the aspect of it in the sense that they did it on behalf of a single person. Many of them did it for Trump in
Right.
specific, and I
Sure.
think
Yeah. Of
that's a
course. Of
mistake.
course.
That's evidence that they are not fully red pilled in that there are no true allies in this government. And I think that was the only mistake that they made. Other than that, I have to support it because they were pretty peaceful about it. Like they threw some punches and stuff like that. But given if you put yourself in their shoes of feeling as if they've been disenfranchised, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And in truth, they handled it pretty responsibly. They didn't go in there blasting. They didn't kill anybody. In fact, they were the only people that got killed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to support it to some extent.
Well, it for me, when I try and think about it from a libertarian perspective, as I try and
Sure.
wrap my head around libertarianism, I always, this makes me ask the question: when does it stop being um, protest and become a violation of the NAP?
Yes.
Right?
Well,
Well,
Where's the
it
line there
depends.
when you're
it
It
boils
storming
depends,
a
though.
building?
it boils down to whether or not you've been aggressed upon already.
Right.
That's the aspect of the NAP that I find huge disagreement amongst the libertarians as to the actual utilization of it. The NAP is only valid if you respond in kind when you're aggressed upon. Most libertarians are pacifists. That's a
Okay.
mistake. You have to be willing to defend yourself when you've been aggressed upon. And I can't think of a bigger aggression in my life than being locked in my fucking house for 10 months. So
Yeah.
I don't see it as a violation of the NAP at all. In fact, it was reciprocal, and it was less than reciprocal. Like given the damages caused to us as a population, I think that they handled it very very kindly in my view.
Yeah. Could have
What?
been way worse.
Well, now I did see at least one report that said something to the effect that the protesters, where they entered, had used some sort of, and basically I'm assuming something along the lines of pepper spray or something to that extent to get past the guards that were
Right.
preventing them from entering the building.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, if they
Mhm.
did that, is that not an initial violation of the NAP in going in by aggressing on those that were securing the building?
To me, it's not, simply because the aggression began long before today. So
Now see, that's a gray area argument that
No,
really
it is
gets
because
difficult.
you can make both arguments of aggression against the individual that you pepper spray versus the individual representing the government, where as if wearing a badge and a uniform, they're
True.
representing the government and are that
Okay.
representative. You can
True.
make both arguments very easily.
Yeah, so I don't think it's very cut and dry. I'll grant you it's a gray area, but I think that, I mean, if you watch the videos, they're being pepper sprayed aggressively by the police. So if they fired it back in kind, again, it's reciprocal. It's it's defensive in nature. If they're doing it in an assault-like fashion against innocent cops that are off duty, I would agree that's a violation of the NAP. If it's a cop that's on duty that's preventing you from, protesting in the way that you see fit, given the aggression that you've experienced over the past 10 months, I don't think there's anything wrong or immoral about it. But I do agree. There's a tremendous difference of opinion amongst the libertarian community. I saw many libertarians coming out strongly opposed to this today. So I would be considered one of the more radical fringe elements that believes that we have been aggressed upon already and that defensive measures are justified.
I would agree with you on that too. I actually was thinking about this earlier. This might be a modern Boston Tea Party event.
It's possible.
It's not like the start of a war, but it's it's a lead up to it.
Well, that girl that got shot on video, you guys probably haven't seen it yet. But
we have it
saw
on
the
our
video,
Discord
yeah.
actually.
Oh, you do? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's graphic, and it could very well be the shot heard around the world when it comes down to the historians looking back on this. I don't know that it will be, but a veteran, an upstanding person and a woman who's unarmed, who's not attacking anybody, shot dead, is not a good look. And I don't know
Right.
how the MAGA people are going to respond to it, but I would imagine it's going to be ferocious. So
Well,
we'll see.
I can agree with that. I mean, sad to say, she's got a lot of things. She had a lot of things that can add spin to this story, right? And
They're going to spin it,
right.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
gonna spin it either way.
I mean to victimize and to martyr her. But on the flip side, like you said earlier, she had broken a window. She was trying to crawl through into the main chamber where there were armed people trying to protect.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I'm trying to figure out if that's a justified response to someone breaching the room.
Yeah.
So
it may very well have been justified. I'm actually not trying to justify her actions. I'm just saying that in perception.
Right. And that's
with perception here, you can make the argument that well, George Floyd, with what was wrong with him, all his stuff in his past, was still seen as a martyr and caused shitloads of riots for like months.
Well, the mainstream
but
media.
The thing is,
Go ahead.
Was my point. That was gonna be my point. Was she's not gonna have the media on her back that's gonna make her out to be a martyr. So I don't think I think it will out and she's gonna be forgotten.
Yeah, they're going to vilify her in most of the mainstream
or just
media.
not mention her.
You guys have to give credence to the fact that the MAGA folks don't watch mainstream media. They are already moving off of it, especially the people I'm talking about, the ones that are dangerous, protest, violent type folks. They have abandoned Fox News, for God's sakes. They're like, these people don't fucking tell the truth anymore. So I think you're right. I think the mainstream media will absolutely demonize her in every way possible to make her as unmartyr-like as possible. But I think that won't change the perception of those that were there today and those that were watching it at home that are armed and ready to fight for their freedom. And I think that we'll see what comes of it. But I am nervous as all get out. Like, I really don't know where this goes, and I'm not gleeful about it. But at the same time, I think it's necessary.
Well, I think it either escalates tomorrow or it fizzles out.
Well,
those are the only two options it has. I think. I don't think it can sustain without escalating. I'm not advocating that it should. I'm just saying that I think those are the two options that it can do, that can happen.
I think they'll regroup and come back hard for inauguration.
Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, I was watching on Stephen's stream, shortly after everyone was kicked out of the Capitol building, and as soon as they received word that the National Guard was on its way, the crowd kind of fizzled out. Within half an hour, most of them were gone.
Hmm.
So I don't think anyone's again more evidence that no one's there really looking for a fight.
Yeah,
Right.
they weren't. I don't
Well,
think they were.
So right. So I mean, I think that it might just. I think chances are very good that it'll just kind of fizzle out over time.
I think it will
I
fizzle,
think
but
you're
like I
right about
said,
inauguration.
inauguration though, man,
I
look
think
out.
you're right about inauguration,
oh,
but I think they're going to be more prepared for it this time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a prediction here, and it may not happen, but I'm after today, I have a stronger feeling about it. I am prepared to hear in the next week or so that the inauguration is going to be a virtual inauguration.
Yeah.
So there will not be a crowd let around. There won't
Right.
be an opportunity for this to happen at the inauguration.
Yeah.
And that looks really bad for Biden. I think
No,
that looks
because
really bad. No,
because
I
you
think
get
that
to
looks really bad.
he can lay it on the
'Cause-
pandemic too. I mean, right?
No, I
We've got all
understand, but
these
he can't.
building
Yeah,
blocks that give him the foundation, and this attack, they'll call it an attack. I shouldn't say attack, but they will call it an attack.
that's
That's
what.
what it's
Yeah.
going to be seen as.
They're
Um,
calling it an insurrection, actually.
Oh yeah,
well,
they're terrorists. Oh yeah,
well,
they're somehow white supremacists. I don't know why
coup
that
was
one
being
got
thrown
shoved in
around a
there.
lot too. Coup was being
Yeah,
thrown around, right?
Yeah.
But
for sure.
because of this will be a primary factor in that, I think. So I don't be surprised if that happens over the next week or so, that they move this all indoors and limit
I think
who's
you're right.
available there.
I
I
think
think you're
that's
right. I
that's
just think
very,
like
very probable.
because this is supposed to be one of the biggest thing, one of the biggest days in our country is every 4 years we have an inauguration. And it's a huge event. It's something that dates back. I don't know how long. I don't know when the first inauguration, like the big like public inauguration was. I don't know if it was original with George Washington or what, but uh, yeah, this is a huge tradition in our country that
Yeah,
everyone takes part in, no
Right.
it'd
matter
be a
left or
huge
right.
precedent or
Right.
precedent breaking move to do that. I personally, I don't know if you guys caught it, but Trump got 3 tweets deleted and he got suspended for 12 hours. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who
And
did what? Oh,
Trump
Trump.
got,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
he got suspended for 12 hours. First time they've done that. They deleted 3 of his tweets, even though I didn't find them to be, um, fuel to the fire necessarily, other than the fact that he's doubling down on the fact that he believes that the election was stolen, which he has not wavered on one bit for months. So
Right.
it didn't seem as if anything had changed in his demeanor as much as the actions on the ground made them decide to take that action. But my belief, and this is very much conspiratorial, but I think that they're going to potentially arrest Trump in the next week.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think that they have laid the groundwork by labeling this an insurrection. Biden tweeted out stating that he felt as if he said he challenged Trump to uphold his oath to the Constitution. That both of those particular uses of language are specific charges that they can use against him procedurally to try and bring
Yeah.
charges against him. So anything's on the table at this point. And if you think it's going to calm down if they do that, whoa, look out!
Yeah,
Like that'll be
definitely
crazy.
not.
Well, did you see?
Also, I know Ellen Omar
Right. I
even
was
said
just going
on
to say
Twitter
that.
that she was drawing up articles of impeachment.
Impeachment. Yep. Again,
Yeah.
like
So I mean,
with
we
2
know
weeks
it's
to go.
happening.
What
Right.
the
I mean,
fuck are we doing?
what are you going to do? He's already
It's
going to
because
be
no,
labeled as
it's
impeached.
the optics of it.
Yes.
They have to be the
Yeah, I
ones
get
to
it.
remove him, not through election, but because they got him.
But
Right? They got him this time.
but
It
any
wasn't the
intelligent
election.
thinking
They got him.
citizen, any intelligent
Yeah. Well.
citizen knows. Okay, that doesn't mean shit 2 weeks before he's out of office anyway. It's just shut the
Doesn't
fuck up,
matter.
right?
It's
He's already
it's
been.
the moral.
You're
It's the
not going to
morale
tag
victory.
him with
It's the
double impeachment. Nobody's going to get.
No.
He's already been impeached. It's on. It's like on his record. Get it?
I understand.
No,
I'm just
I'm
saying.
talking to her. It's just that kind of stupid shit. It's like
No,
just
it's going to look really good for them. They'll be able to say that for the next 4 years or until they get bored of it. They're going to be able to say, "We got rid of him. We got rid of him. He can't do damage to us anymore."
I think it's
And he gets that big asterisk next to his presidency for the rest of history.
well, he's already got it there. I mean,
That's
he's
true.
Well,
been
I mean, they
impeached.
impeached, but I'm saying removed from office
Oh, yes,
due to
yes.
impeachment.
Yeah, but they couldn't. They wouldn't be able to pull it off in the 2 weeks that it takes. And if they did, then I would be very pissed off and expect something to happen for a concerted effort to destroy the man's chances in 2024 for running president again.
Yeah.
That would be an obvious effort to destroy him as a potential candidate in 2024.
The reason I believe that there's a chance that they arrest him is not because they think that he's a danger of winning the election or proving the fraud, but simply because he's been an outsider that hasn't played ball all along, and they hate him for it. And now they have an opportunity where there's been violence at the Capitol, a historic event where someone got into the Capitol that hasn't happened in hundreds of years, and I think that they want to make basically a symbol to anyone else that's involved in politics, that if you come in and you don't play ball, this is how it ends. Whether or not you trick the public into voting for you, we will ruin your fucking life. And I think that's the reason they've impeached him multiple times now, or they're considering doing it again. And now I think that there's a chance that they actually imprison the dude, because he just refuses to play ball, and he will not do it. And I respect the hell out of it. I got to be honest. The fact that he will stick to his guns, and I know he's received unbelievable threats. I can't even imagine what he's received by these people, and he just sticks to it. He just keeps going. So I don't know. We'll see what happens though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does speak to how toothless they actually are, that he's been able to run his full 4 years not playing ball. And,
but what has he accomplished though? I mean, they're not toothless when it comes to preventing progress. They did a great job of it.
But that's where that Senate and House game comes into play, and the Supreme Court comes into play. How you have them loaded, and if you can tie things up and you can fuck with things. But I mean, he has made some policy strides during his presidency. He has accomplished some things.
But what I'm specifically referencing is his attempt to get us out of wars. They have stopped him at every turn, from removing soldiers from different areas of operation that we have, which we don't even call wars because we have so many fucking places that we're in combat. But they bragged about lying about how many soldiers we had on the ground in Syria. They lied about it.
Trump.
Yeah, and they come out and declare it proudly, laughing. We didn't tell him how many troops we had there. So when we told him we had removed some troops, we hadn't. We had just moved them around, and the numbers actually didn't decrease. In fact, they probably increased slightly. It's just incredible what, like, anyone that believes in democracy or the separation of powers after Trump's presidency, I don't know how. I don't know how you could watch what they've done with him and come to the conclusion that our vote is meaningful. I mean, look at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was a laughingstock. No one in the DNC wanted her. She got less than 2% of the vote in the primaries. They kicked her out as fast as possible. These are the Democratic voters. They hated her guts. She was gone instantly. And then they sneak her in the back door of a dude who's dying from dementia. And she's going to be the president of the United States within his term. I'm almost certain. So
100%, yeah.
This is not a democratic process anymore. And that's the point that I'm trying to really drive home, is that whether or not you believe in democracy, we don't exist in one anymore. That's really how I feel about it. And I know it sounds conspiratorial, but if you look at this stuff, it seems pretty obvious.
No, it's plain to see. And I think that we are, this is the time where it's really being exposed. What's actually been going on for years. I mean, this machine has been picking and choosing the president for years.
Yep.
Behind the scenes. Yep. And or attempting to at every turn. I mean, we can look at things like the Bush-Gore situation, and and then you look at Hillary Clinton and all of the bullshit that went on with that, and Bernie Sanders being just fucking backstabbed by the DNC, because these people had a message. But we've seen this kind of thing happen. I don't care if we get kicked off. I'll go back to JFK, because JFK was not killed by someone outside of our government. I don't fucking believe that for one fucking minute. And it was because the man actually potentially had a plan to make something different happen in this country than the status quo that they were gearing us towards and building to that we currently live in.
Yeah, and what were the two things that he was opposed to that probably got him killed? Central banking and the military-industrial complex. Those are the fucking third rail of presidential politics. You touch those, your life is in jeopardy. Trump has touched that. He didn't do it with the central bank, but he did it
Right.
very, very significantly with the wars. And that is not something that the establishment, whether it's Democrat or Republican, will allow for.
Mhm.
And that's the reason I believe that they're going to ruin his life. You know, whether or not they
Yeah.
take him out, they're going to ruin his life, and they're going to make him a pariah. And that's the reason, because they can't have this precedent of a guy that comes in, does whatever he wants, and gets away with it. They have to send the message that if you want to be in power, you have to play ball, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Right. Where are we at? Oh, we're getting about that time. I will ask this question, okay?
Sure.
So Trump leaves office, and Biden comes in. They're not able to attach any crimes to him, so he's open for 2024.
Sure.
Is he Epsteined between now and then?
Oh, I think it's highly probable. I mean, he's not exactly the model of health anyway, so it's going to be hard because that dude could. I mean, he is like immortal in the sense that he just does 6-hour talking events 3 days after having COVID. So he may live forever. I don't know. But my point is, he's not exactly the model of health, and he is in his 70s. So if he were to drop dead, who would know? You know, they could hit him with the Breitbart heart attack.
The heart attack gun, like with Bernie Sanders. Yeah, you know, give him the heart attack gun.
So I think it's possible. But I really do think that they're going to hit him with criminal charges. We'll see. I mean, we're going to find out very soon. So, this is honestly just a thought that I had today. Like I had never even considered that they might go that path. But after today, after the language that I've seen used in unison, like I'm sure you guys are familiar with the cathedral concept of the media and the government and then the colleges, the universities. I have never seen a more quickly adopted uniform use of a word that you don't ever see, and it was sedition. And sedition and insurrection. Mm-hmm. Both of those have very specific constitutional meanings, and they are both being used in unison across every single news outlet you could find, including politicians. We had Whitmer coming out with it. We had Biden coming out with it. Kamala Harris coming out with it. ABC, NBC, CBS, just down the line, and they were all in unison. So I'm like, okay, this is a top down. Like, this is what we're doing, folks. So we'll see. The groundwork has been laid.
Yeah, that's where I'm really curious. Like you were talking about tomorrow, John. You know, these options. So that becomes the question: Does this get picked up? I know that, like in LA, there were some people protesting there, there were some small protests scattered around the country, but nothing that got really out of hand.
There was one. Washington State Governor House got broken into by protesters.
Yeah, but the House was asking for it. Look how it was dressed.
Protesters?
I'm just saying that's pretty unusual. So I was happy to see that they actually went after a governor for once. Thank goodness.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Which protesters was it that did that?
Washington State.
Oh, so it would have been more lefty guys, I assume.
Well, I don't think so, because there's rural aspects of Washington State that are very
that's
red.
Fair.
It's just like the cities, as it always is.
Right.
And real quick, Ron Helpman in the chat, he's been shutting up the storm. He makes a very good point, though. He says, remember, they were unarmed today. Yeah, exactly. I hope that they do remember that.
Well, I will. That's the question I want answered. Ultimately, as this comes out, hopefully we'll hear some truth somewhere in things as to whether or not anybody did go in there armed. If they were able to get into the building, with weapons. I know that there were reports that there had been some gunshots before the woman was shot. There were reports that there was gunfire in there, but who knows where it was from.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they arrested anybody with weapons from within.
I saw some photos that looked like there was some protesters that were armed with AK or ARs inside. So I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that there was some weapons on those people that got in. Like, there's no doubt.
Right.
Whether or not they went in there with the intention of actually harming anybody, I think is very much unlikely, because they didn't. They didn't actually harm anybody. So I think that's probably not the case. But I agree with you that will be a meaningful point when it comes to the media portrayal of this. They will definitely try to spin it as, well, yeah, we killed that girl because there was armed guys. So we didn't know if she was armed too.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean that does it. It does kind of make me question. It's like, however, against the Second Amendment it is, there was basically a widespread ban on like weapons at the protests. You weren't supposed to be bringing weapons to the protests, and I'm like, you know, well, if you're going to lay that down, why were there people with, you know,
Well,
weapons there, like, bright long guns that you can't just hide easily, you know?
yeah. Well, in fairness, I saw one photo, so I don't even know if it was
Right.
from that day.
Gotcha.
But I
Right.
did
There's
see
no
a guy
telling,
with a
right?
rifle. Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to like spread misinformation. I'm not sure, but I would be stunned if there weren't people with concealed handguns and things of that nature. But to me, it's not really just from my vantage point as a dyed in the wool libertarian that believes in the Second Amendment is never to be fucked with. I don't think that those laws matter. I mean, that's my personal view. I know a lot of people would disagree, but so be it. I think you should be able to arm wherever you go.
But without
Yeah.
law, we are nothing but animals.
Yeah, well,
So be it.
Isn't that what they say?
So fucking be it.
Uh,
rock on, John.
dude, with or without laws, we're still animals. It's really what it all. We're just all a bunch of
Exactly.
fucking animals trying to
I was
get
gonna say,
by.
does this feel like civilized,
Right.
community right now? It's whether we
When
have
when
laws
I
or
when
not.
I lock my doors and I don't look out my windows and I'm just sitting with my wife, yes, it
Right.
does.
Yeah.
But anything else, all bets are off. So fuck it, right? All right.
Real quick though, I want to acknowledge Elephant Man over here on D Live has donated not only a lemon and not only an ice cream, but a diamond as well with the message John needs to run for Congress.
What?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
John
right?
doesn't run to the bathroom if he's got a piss bag. No.
Oh, that's not true. I've definitely done it before. But yeah, no, I'm not. I have no interest in ruling or having power over others, even if it is to supposedly, uh, for a better cause.
Right.
Like I just have no interest in having my whole life just torn apart
And that's
on
the
the way
part of
up.
your libertarianism that just pisses me off.
I know,
Like that's
I
the part of
know.
libertarianism for a lot of people. Is like, I don't want to be involved in
Yeah, there's
politics,
basically two types of
right? But you get
libertarians.
you.
There's two types of libertarians. Ones who don't want to be in office, ones who want to be president. That's really about it. You don't get the in between all that often.
Yeah. In fairness, those that are interested in politics, especially at the national level, that are libertarians, usually want to get in there to give up their power. They don't want to
Right.
get in there to control people, which is why I've supported many libertarian candidates over my life and why I may run at some point in my future. But ultimately, this system is so sick. I'm not sure we're going to have fucking elections in the in the near future. So
Well,
we'll see what happens.
well, I will say that I think that if libertarians, especially new media libertarians that are out there talking, get more people, more libertarians involved in politics at the local level,
Yeah,
it will build the movement that you need to infiltrate the government and overthrow the status quo.
I agree.
But
Yeah, I mean, it worked for the
but
left,
this
as we can
but
see.
this
It worked for them.
yeah, but
Who
just
knows?
running up to the podium and say, coming from, just a blue collar job and running up to the podium and say, I'm going to run for president. I'm a libertarian. I
I've read
bring
I'm Man
change.
once
And
or twice.
it's like, nobody knows who you are. Now you're just a whack job talking shit. You didn't prove yourself. You didn't,
Yeah,
get a movement started. If we had 1,000 movements across this country at a local level being started, libertarianism would infiltrate Washington in a decade.
Well,
yeah,
I don't know about a decade, but it could happen for sure. I think that the problem from my vantage point is that the situation's so dire. We don't have decades like that. That's my
right.
honest belief is that we're going to have economic collapse long before that. So when that occurs,
Oh yeah.
you're going to have a population of people that seek comfort and they seek assistance, and
Mhm.
that's why I believe that we're likely in store for a leftist dictator type.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going
Yeah.
to the beach and collecting seashells right now so that you have money later on, well, you're a fool. I'm
No,
just
you got to
saying.
use the old Coca-Cola caps, right? The cola.
No, because
You
you
got to use
can't get them
caps.
anyway. You can't get any more. Seashells are abundant there. First come, first serve. Go out there and get them all you want.
Well,
But
everyone's been out there getting cryptocurrencies. I
Yeah.
kept I kept all my money in my Pogs and Slammer collection. So I'm
oh,
Oh, there you
dude,
go. I'll have to break out my Pokemon card collection and maybe see if there's something worth anything in there.
Wow, so many people don't even know what Pogs are, man.
Oh, Pogs were
Pogs.
the shit back then. Oh, yeah.
I figured it would land with you guys. Maybe the
But
viewers
do
won't
you,
know what I'm talking about.
but do either
Yeah.
one of you know where Pogs started, where they came from?
They-
Russia, right?
I heard it was from
No?
Hawaii.
It's Hawaii.
Is it
They
Hawaii?
they were
Why
little
did I think-
discs.
Oh, that's Tetris. I was thinking Tetris. for
They
some
were
reason.
little discs inside of the orange juice jugs. They were a little disc, a collectible disc that you could pull out of orange juice jugs. So you'd open
Yeah.
up your orange juice, and there was a Pog in there, and that started in Hawaii, and then it just took off
Yeah.
somehow, somewhere, and it's like, oh, well, now you've just ruined it.
I had thousands. I had thousands when I was in middle school because we would play for keeps. So like gambling with them. God, those were the days. Simpler
Oh, yeah.
times.
The good
so
old
much
days.
better.
Where you could just sit down and play a D&D campaign and
Yeah.
not worry about how your tax dollars were being spent. Right?
Also, real quick, Elephant Man donated another diamond to say Florida Man has been awful quiet lately, John. What the fuck? Florida Man's probably up in DC right now, I imagine.
Sure.
I imagine that's where he's hanging out, doing his meth and drinking Bud Light,
the last notable thing last week I saw about Florida Man was there was a Florida Man had a fucking like a backhoe, one of the that has the claw on it you can pick things up with, and he had a fucking airplane in the claw, and he's just like flying like a kid does with a toy airplane. He's just sitting there flying the fucking airplane around.
Oh, I did see that.
I
Yeah.
saw that video, yeah.
I did see that.
No, leave it to Florida, you know.
Hey man, it's hot down here. There's a lot of meth going around, a lot of beer. Well, you
Hey.
gotta find your way to entertain yourself somehow.
Listen, we need to open up a constrictor hut, like sell constrictor burgers. Now that they're wanting people to hunt them, they're
Ooh.
trying to make sure that it's okay for people to eat them, and they're going to start opening up restaurants and
And you
shit.
say you're not a libertarian. Look at you with your free
I know,
market
dude.
solutions. Look at you. That's what I'm talking about.
No. I just want to get rich real quick and then peace the fuck out.
That's capitalism,
No,
baby.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
libertarianism.
I just need a couple of mattresses full, and I'm good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, hey, John. So I have an idea. So hopefully there's still people hanging around. So why don't you prepare to open a chest on D Live? I'm going to throw it
Yeah.
to you real quick. If you want to, how about if you plug yourself for us, Clint?
Sure.
If you don't mind plugging yourself on, to the public.
Oh yeah, I could care less. At LibertyLockPod on Twitter, Liberty Lockdown Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all over the place. So Liberty Lockdown Podcast, and next Wednesday I will be having Pete Quinones on from Free Men Beyond the Wall. He is a real mover and shaker in the ANCAP community. He's been on Part of the Problem and things like that. So it should be a blast. Look forward to that. So make sure you don't miss it.
Definitely some good
Yeah.
stuff. John, do you want to maybe? Do we have a chest to pop? Are we poppable?
I actually already popped it.
No way. Good job.
I did. Yeah.
No drum roll or anything. Damn, you're gay.
Nope. We're also getting more donations though. Look at that.
Hey, donations are
Got an
always
ice cream
good.
from Ron Hilton. Thank you. And an Elephant Man gave us an ice cream as well. So we're really competing for that chest over there.
I appreciate it,
Well, that's
guys.
good for
I will say I lean towards Diamond. The ice cream's making me kind of fat, but
Yeah.
so John, if you don't mind, could you tell these lovely folks about all that stuff down there, where they can find Clint, where they can find us, blah blah blah.
Yes, all of our links are in the description. It's if you keep scrolling after you hit the like and subscribe button, it'll be right there. You can find. I assume you put the link for Clint stuff in there.
Like 3 of his podcasts and his Twitter. Something from
Awesome.
Apple, something from Spotify, something
Perfect.
from some, things like
Gotcha.
that.
So yeah, go check the links out down below the description. You'll find all his stuff there, including his Twitter. Also, our Twitter is over there at the GenGapP. We've got our Discord server, which is a lot of fun. So if you're in your Discord, come join us, hang out there. A lot of good conversation. We got a subscribe star. So if you have a passive affection for us and you want to throw a couple bucks our way, that's a good way of doing so. You also get perks in return. So we're not just taking your money for nothing. We're not the government.
Nothing like being perky.
And we're also on freedomscoop.com. You can find all of our stuff over there and other lesser and unimportant creators like J. Edgar and Stephen Ignoramus. Wyatt from Breakdown with Birkenhoff is over there. Already Conservative, and the Freckles and Brit Show is over there as well. So make sure you go and check them out. And while you're over there, you can buy our merch. We got t-shirts, we got mugs, all that fun stuff. And if you put the code GenGap in at checkout, you get 15% off your purchase. So make sure you go ahead and do that.
I think I've been on almost every single one of those shows now.
Oh yeah.
and while I'm at it, mad shout out to Stephen Ignoramus today, being
Yes.
down in the thick of things in DC. Jacked himself up, had a ton of people watching. He made a shout out about Freedom Scoop, and I thought it was it's a good and bad thing. Like he had enough people went to freedomscoop.com that they wound up crashing the site, which is
Yeah.
it's like, damn, you don't want the site to go down, but that's the best way to do it, right?
Right.
That's the way you want it to happen. So yeah, go check out freedomscoop.com, and
Real quick,
there's bullshit to hear from there.
Ron Hilton's asking, are there zippered hoodies for sale? Not for the Gen Gap, but for Freedom Scoop there are. And I don't know if there's other some of the other creators do it too. So just go check the store, and don't forget to use the code Gen Gap.
If it helps, Ron, I am pushing to get us a flannel.
Flannel would be good, yeah.
I think a flannel would be more up Ron's alley. When
Yeah,
he's out there
he seems
dealing
like
with
a
the
flannel
chickens,
guy.
when he's out there playing with the chickens and stuff, you need something more.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we very much appreciate all of you showing up tonight, all that wonderful chat and everything. Sorry we didn't spend too much time on the chat, but you know how we are when we have a guest. We cuck to them and let them talk too much. But no, actually, Clint, thank you so much for being here. Very
man.
insightful individual, and I have to say that you actually gave me a little bit of pause, and I have some libertarian things to rethink about and look at, maybe to
My
figure out
mission's accomplished.
Yeah.
where on the spectrum I lie, because we have
I
to
think
have
you're more
a
libertarian.
spectrum.
You're more libertarian than you give yourself credit, but I understand the hesitancy to declare it. So we'll let you read further and see what you think.
As long as I can be a rainbow libertarian, I'm fine.
There's a lot of those out there too.
Yeah, we're fine with that. Whatever.
All right, we're going to get the hell out of here. We will be back again on Friday at 8:30 p.m. with our regular show. We, as far as I know, will be bouncing back again on Monday with another episode of Filling the Gap, maybe bring a little bit of laughter to you in these challenging times. And then, of course, we'll also be back a week from now. That is 9:30 on Monday, and then we'll be back a week from now at 9:30 on Wednesday for another rousing episode of Shooting the Shit. All of those times are Eastern time zone, the one and only true time zone. All the rest, of course, are posers. We're going to get the hell out of here. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Have yourself a great night, and peace out.
See you guys.
The war will begin.